It's so easy to get caught up with terrible, I was going to call it BS. But am I going to say it? It's so easy to get caught up in buying into the modern culture of getting more and doing better repeatedly. And it's so easy on all aspects, right? That's how we measure things. That's very deeply ingrained with a lot of American culture. It was a striking thing when we came to America. I'm Canadian, and it was a real striking thing when we realized that yeah, everybody gets compared under all everything, the whole thing, everything's about this like comparison, and that you're doing better and ratcheting up. There's deep origins, the sort of philosophy of that, but at the same time, it's easy just to get caught up in it and to define our life by these particular things. And there are a lot of things that just don't hold up in the way that they actually should, right? Like aging. Eventually, at some point, aging does happen. It's a natural thing, and um, that you will reach points where things will slow down naturally as you get older. Things start breaking down, or there are invisible, very much invisible things that you don't see or are not accounted for, and that are well known. People know about these things and these are metric games of things, but nobody accounts for them for various different reasons, like institutions and legalities. Nobody wants to get sued, so they never account for various different things, or there's disagreements about how to interpret one thing, and so people don't account for it. Um, but there's lots of things like this that actually exist, and if you actually look at the nature of counting, you'll begin. The accountants is their job is to actually sit down and think about this. Um, and there is a lot of challenges that are never clear cut. And one would think it was easy to convert things into numbers, the world around us into numbers, but it's often not the case. And we have to think about what it means to live within this particular world that we like to say, talk about success and to convert things into numerical things that we're trying to optimize on. But there's often a big assumption behind that says that do we want to optimize on this? Can we actually convert things into numerical? With the most important things in this world that we know of, I want you to name what those are. Longevity, um, things like love, things like passion, things like laughing. All of these things, you cannot convert them into numerical values. They make absolutely no sense, at least for you, right? You can do these in a research study and they make sense, right? You can count the number of times that people laugh in a circumstance. And if you did that on aggregate, you could kind of get a measure of something. But there's a difference often in how you're laughing and what that looks like and your own experiences. That's often a challenging thing to look at. And we know this statistically. We can't look at individual experiences and we can't sort of generalize from research studies. In fact, that's probably really poor science to say that a research study is representative of a lot of people. It's often not, or a lot of circumstances. So what I'm getting at here is to remember that we have to, on one hand, I understand the merit behind quantifying things and talking about feedback in a quantitative way, where we have numerical values or text values or any number of different things for feedback. But on the other side, many of the things that we take for granted that are important in our life, the things that really truly matter, can never be converted into numerical values, and nor should they. And we have to be careful with facing this tension all the time and what this actually means in our life. So we almost always have to push back. Almost always. We have to actively push back against numerical values. It's easy to quantify the amount of money that you get. It's easy to quantify your salaries and all of these kind of things, or in my world, it's publications. Super easy to quantify those. It's very hard to quantify your relationship with your son or your daughter or your spouse, friends. And so what ends up happening? We push out all of those things. We don't measure ourselves based on how we communicate or feel about other people. And we measure ourselves based on what our numerical value is, on how much money. So I just want you to be well aware, to be careful, that you're always sensitive to that you always have to see that it's easy to optimize on things that have numerical value. And the reason why they have numerical values is because they're easy to create, these numerical values. The things that are the most important, we would argue, we would have institutions that would say one thing and another thing to say another thing, and we'd have legal fights and all of these kind of things, because they're very hard to quantify. And I want you to really take a step back and say, what world do I want to live in? In a world where the things that are most important to us are not accounted for, or a world where we just look at the things that actually have value. And I'm going to tell you this, both are equally good and both matter. Where you quantify easy thing, you need to have a good salary to have a good life. But at the same time, you need to push back and say that's not all of life is to have a good salary. In fact, other things are perhaps more important. Things like going to your synagogue, going to your mosque, saying hi to a friend, laughing. All of those things cannot be quantified, and nor should they be. But those are equally important, and the only way that we uphold them is we cherish them. And we say that we can cherish them, and we will cherish them because they're important to us. And no matter how much it's seductive to look at numerical values, and it's very seductive, you push back and you say they don't matter. Because the rest of the world is going to say that they do. And the things that are subjective, qualitative, that you can't measure, everybody's going to say that those are not important. But they actually are the most important thing in our life. Take care. Have a wonderful day.